Madam City Clerk, do we have Manny Martinez at home? Very well. Is he ready to go? Excellent. All right, very well. Everybody ready to go? All right, awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Are we recording? We're ready to go. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now 6:02 p.m. on Tuesday, September 28th. I hereby call this meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing. Councilor Peggy Sue Martinez, could you please lead us in a moment of silence and meditation? Invocation.
Father God, we come before you today representing the city of Espanola. I pray for the leaders of all people, those near and far, that they make decisions in the best interests of those they represent. I thank you for the harvest so bountiful in our community. I ask you for more rain. Bless this community with moisture as it is so dry. I also ask humbly blessings over our community, over our staff, our governing body, their families, the children of our community, and the elders. I ask also for prayer for those dealing with illnesses and affliction in our community. May they feel hopeful. In the name of Jesus, amen.
Amen. Please be seated. Madam Clerk Serrano, could you please take roll and determine a quorum?
Mayor Pro Tem Dennis Tim Salazar.
Present.
Councillor Peggy Sue Martinez.
Honored to be with you all.
Councillor Justin Salazar Torres.
Present.
Councillor John Ramon Vigil.
Present.
Councillor Manuel J. Martinez.
Manny.
Councillor John L. Ritchie.
Present.
Councillor Denise D. Benavides. Present. Councillor Dorothy D. Valdez.
Present.
Councillor Manuel J. Martinez.
He's muted.
Let's see, where is he? We know he's out there somewhere. Here he is.
Counselor Manuel J. Martinez. Mayor Javier E. Sanchez.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. And as soon as we get a recognition from Councilor Manny Martinez, we'll also note him for the record. We see him and we may believe that there's some muted issues there going on. So thank you very much. We'll now move on to the approval of the agenda. Motion to approve.
So move. Second.
Very well. We have a motion of approval from Councilor Justin Salazar Torres with a second from Councilor Peggy Sue Martinez. All of those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Very well. The agenda is approved as seen. We'll now go on to the consent agenda for the September 14, 2021 City Council meeting minutes.
Motion to approve, sir.
Second. We have a motion from Mayor Pro Tem Dennis Tim Salazar with a second from Councilor Justin Salazar Torres. All of those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. All right, seeing none, the ayes have it, and the consent agenda is thereby accepted. Next, we'll go on to public commentary. Ms. Sedano, do we have anyone for public comments?
John Wickersham.
Good afternoon, John Wickersham, President of the Espanola Firefighters Union. I'm here with Toby Morphine, a local artist. I just want to remind everybody of our Espanola Fire Prevention Block Party this Sunday, 11 to 3 at Lowe's parking lot. We're giving away free smoke detectors. So if you guys are in need of a smoke detector, come out. We'll give you a free smoke detector. We have 2 helicopters that are going to come in and land, Classic Air Medical and Lifeguard. Thanks to Kelly Cook or Kelly Armstrong. She let us use the road right there. So we're going to shut down that road right by Loudermilk and land 2 helicopters for the kids to see. We have the smoke trailer from Los Alamos Fire Department coming down to teach the kids about fire prevention and fire safety. We have local fire departments, Rio Arriba, Santa Fe County, that are coming out to join us as well as the Lowrider Community and Association. They put together the block party as well with us, with local businesses, Starkit, PetSense, and gift certificates and stuff for the kids. So come out and join us, and we'll be selling our breast cancer awareness shirts also. That's why I have Toby with us. It's our 10th year selling them, and he designed the shirts this year. So they're $15. We'll be selling them this Sunday, October 3rd at the Fire Prevention Block Party. So come out and join us. We'd appreciate it. Free smoke detectors, and we'll be selling our breast cancer shirts. So, thank you.
Thank you. Is that the shirt that will be on sale, sir?
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, I like that.
That's this year's design.
That's nice.
Should put it in front of the camera on the tablet so everybody can see.
They can get a hold of us at the fire department or our Facebook page, Espanola Firefighters Union, IFF Local 4339, or they can get a hold of me, John Wickersham, via Facebook. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Sedano, who else do we have for public comments?
That concludes public comment, sir.
Very well. We'll move on next to committee chair updates and councilor comments. Councilor Justin Salazar Torres, and then we'll go next to Councilor Manny Martinez.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor. We have a Public Safety Committee meeting coming up here the first Wednesday of the month. So I've already given the update for that, but I do want to reiterate to any councilors that have any comments, questions, or concerns regarding public safety to please get a hold of me before Thursday. That's when our agenda will be coming out. And if there's any items that they would like for this committee to hear, we are all ears.
Thank you, sir. Councilor Manny Martinez.
Thank you, Mayor, and I apologize for being late on the Zoom here. We did have a meeting on September 20th, and I just want to let everybody know you have a lot of action items or just recommended items to full council that we'll be hearing later this evening. So I'm not going to go into detail on that, but we also did approve to purchase the red ribbon pledge cards for the local schools. So that is a go. We also had a discussion on the Blue Star Mothers organization and how we can keep it going. We had several recommendations and different thoughts in mind of how we can keep it going. So I know our community services director, Mr. Maestas, will be working on that moving forward to see how we can keep that organization afloat in the city of Espanola, sir. And pretty much that's what I just wanted to report and just say I hope everyone's had a great week.
Thank you, Councilor. Do we have any other councilor comments? All right, very well. Councilor Didi Valdez, go right ahead.
Yes, today the Espanola Valley High School and McCurdy School had a shelter in place or a lockdown. I'm not sure of the specifics, but I'm just glad that everything turned out okay.
Thank you, Councilor Valdez. All right, anybody else? Mayor Pro Tem, Councilor Dennis Tim Salazar.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I just like to remind everybody, we have our Public Works Committee meeting coming up October 5th, which is next Tuesday, so 6 p.m. Thank you, sir.
All right, very well. Councilor Peggy Sue Martinez.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to pick Councilor John Ritchie's brain concerning the last meeting that he had with North Central, and if they discussed the trash situations with businesses, being that they do collect directly from businesses and it's sort of out of our hands. I really have a lot of concern about the trash that is in the areas of the dumpsters, the business dumpsters. Recently, took a ride sort of behind the Goodwill and the Pathway House, and that trash can over there is just horrible. There's trash all along the parking lot and on the area and here on the west side. So I wondered if you were able to bring that up to your board and if they discussed it and where we're at with making things stronger and tighter and trying to clean up Espanola.
Yes, Councilor Martinez, we did discuss it, and we also needed to come back and look at what we have on the books within the city regarding ordinances with the trash receptacle containment areas. For immediate, I've asked Peter and the city manager to look at the businesses that are probably the worst. In one of them is the Family Dollar store over on across from, I'm sorry,
Murphy?
not only the Murphys, but over across from La Cocina, the Family Dollar store over there. That one, I've had taken a photo of it, and it is out of control. And the responsibility is of the businesses to take care of that and get it cleaned up. But if they need assistance, they should reach out to North Central or the city to see what we can help with if they're having issues with getting it picked up. So we, again, I've discussed with Peter Fuller and the city manager and to see what we can do on the real bad ones within the city.
I really, could I continue, Mayor?
Of course.
Thank you. I really feel like this is something the city needs to pay special attention to. And it's something that has gotten considerably worse over the last probably year, maybe since COVID. And it seems like the trash from these trash cans is spewing all over the community. If you look across La Cocina, Mayor, I'm sure you've seen that filled full of trash. In the area where Murphy's is the same situation. The trash is just all over the place and it's just blowing everywhere. Across from Walmart is the same situation. So it's something that I'm hopeful the code enforcement could possibly get involved with. and staff trying to figure out how we can tighten up this type of an ordinance so that we can be sure that all the trash is where it needs to be in our community. Like I've always said, we can certainly do better in keeping this community clean. And I'm hopeful that everybody will be in tune with that. Thank you.
Go ahead, Counselor.
Thank you, Mayor. Regarding this topic, I asked Counselor Dennis Tim if you could put it on your agenda for Public Works to see and bring up the ordinance to see how it's worded for the responsibilities of the businesses, and if what we need to tighten it up or if it's strong enough to enforce. So I asked if we can do that for next.
Okay, yes, sir, absolutely. In fact, I do plan for next Tuesday, to start the discussion on it and then see exactly what we need to do or what we can do on that committee to try to get some teeth, or like you mentioned, if we have enough teeth, and then see how we could go forward from there. So
Thank you very much.
thank you, sir.
Council. And I have one more item real quick. I would like to acknowledge Father Javi over at Holy Cross. He is celebrating his 30th year as an ordained priest of the Sons of the Holy Family. And I like to thank him for all his spiritual guidance for our community and continue his work helping our valley. So God bless you, Father Javi.
Thank you. Before we go back to Counselor Peggy Sue Martinez, we have Chief Ron Padilla of the Fire Department to continue to address the trash issue. Go ahead, sir.
Mr. Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, members of the council. If you can get me, Counselor Ritchie, if you can get me the information of those dumpsters that are overflowing with trash. Get me that information. I'll have one of our fire inspectors address that issue. If all three of those businesses are using that trash can and they're responsible for that, they'll be responsible for the fire load that's there. So we can do something on the fire side with that, maybe write them a memo, letting them know that, hey, this needs to be cleaned up. It's your responsibility. I said it's a fire issue due to the fire load that's there. So if I could get that information, I'll be more than glad to take care of that this week.
Thank you, Chief Padilla. Counselor Peggy Sue Martinez, go right ahead.
Thank you, Chief. So some of the things that I would like to see is making sure that they're enclosed in an enclosed area where only the trash people that need to get to it can get to it. And then the other thing is the possibility of adding fines to businesses when the city has to go pick up something like that couch that we went to get, and so many other times that the city has had to go out and utilize their manpower to go do things that should be actually taken care of by the business, giving the city the authority to add on a service charge to their bill for that month, those kinds of things, so that it sort of deters businesses from being lax with that situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Manny Martinez.
Thank you, sir. I just have a question also for Counselor Ritchie on that. Are the businesses able to, I mean, I'm sure the trash is picked up weekly, but if for whatever reason there's an overload of trash throughout the week, are they able to call and have it picked up at that time, or do they get charged extra that maybe they're not calling? Or are they able to pick up multiple times during the week? I'm sure that the overflow may not be just from the business, but from other people dumping into their dumpster.
To answer that question, the last comment is what is causing most of the problem. There's people dumping in their trash bins. And then based on the business, it depends on how many times they're having picked up. I know the Family Dollars is, I think, once a week. And actually, the manager at Peter Fuller has reached out to the corporate, has tried to reach out to the corporate office to increase their dumping per month. And so as I am aware of right now, he hasn't had any contact with the corporate office. That was as of last week.
Thank you, sir.
Counselor John Ramon Vijel.
Thank you. Counselor Ritchie, can you go in a little bit further? I know the ratepayers were notified that there was going to be a rate increase. Can you discuss that a little bit further? The board did take that action and such.
Clarify your question again, sir?
We got notices in the paper and on little cards. It said that there was a rate increase.
Yes, sir.
Can you please discuss that and elaborate further for the listening audience so they can understand why we received that decision and such, and going a little bit more?
Well, we raised the rates due to the condition of our equipment, and we haven't had a rate increase for several years. And so with the 11%, it came out to, depending on the location, it averaged about $2 a week or a month, depending on the location. So it was an investment in our trash authority, because again, as you know, we've been dealing with equipment issues and we haven't replaced equipment in many years due to funding. And so it was a time, and it's always a hard decision to make when you're increasing rates, but this was definitely needed for the community.
For what's that, Counselor Peggy Sue Martinez for follow-up.
Thank you. So are our city constituents seen that increase also?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, Counselor, I'm sorry.
I just asked him if our city constituency has seen that rate also. So are they billing us 11% more, or how is that working?
That was a rate increase that was imposed on every resident in the county. Is that correct?
They
Or
don't have
the-
the authority to raise within the city, only the city council does.
No,
Because
they,
we have a memo of understanding with them. And,
Well-
and we represent the constituency, so we can raise the service and the fee, but I don't believe that they can raise the service of the constituency within the city.
We can raise it to the city, and it's up to the city then to make the decision if they're gonna absorb it or raise the rate to the
Thank you.
community.
That was my point. Thank you. You clarified exactly what I was saying.
very well. Counselor Manny Martinez.
No question here, sir.
All right, very well. Any other counselor comments? None. All right, very well. We'll go on to matters from the mayor. We have a presentation here by Ms. Cynthia Lentini of Project Race. She is the new coordinator for Project Race, and I'd like to introduce her not only as the new coordinator, but more importantly, as someone who is truly active, not only in the community, but in recognizing what perhaps we could do to improve our situation with regard to drug use, drug rehabilitation, but most importantly, drug prevention. And just for the record, let it be known that Ms. Lentini a few years ago at a presentation in Santa Fe, where I was present, very vehemently required that we do something about housing, do something about our society and our community, and was certainly a vehement, champion of what it is that we need to do to get things done. But I'm very proud of that fact, and very proud of the fact that Ms. Lentini really has shown great effort, not only within the city of Espanola, but has shown great aspirations for HIDA throughout the entire state of New Mexico, proven very effective and a great partner for Project Race. So Ms. Lentini, if you could, we would greatly recommend and applaud you for coming before us today and showing what it is that you can do to help not only the city of Espanola and our community, but help those throughout the entire state. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Mayor Sanchez, esteemed council members. It's my pleasure to speak with you this evening and introduce myself. I'm Cynthia Lentini. I am the program manager for Project Race. I am a community member. I do live and reside in Espanola, just a 3-minute drive from here. It is my pleasure to be serving the city. I think that Espanola has been given a very bad rap for a very long time. And The sad fact is that we do have a very difficult drug abuse, substance abuse problem within the city, within Rio Arriba County. Unfortunately, that is also multi-generational. Our children are learning from their parents, who learned from their grandparents. And it seems to be something that we can't stop. The point of Project Race is to get involved with our children at a young age to see if we can make these preventions possible. One of the reasons that I'm involved now, one of the things that I highlighted is that I believe that we need to do drug prevention with a focus on education and employment. It will kill two birds with one stone. If we can keep our community members off of substance abuse, encourage them into a higher education, in some cases, tradesman education, and enable them to go out into the workforce. Not only can we build a workforce from within our own county, but we can really lower the number of drug abuse, the crimes related to drug abuse, the deaths related to drug abuse. It is our intention to start going out to the schools in Rio Arriba County, elementary schools, middle schools, and high schools. If we only tackle the high schools, we're too late. We're waiting too long. We are also going to go forward with the elementary and middle school children by promoting self-advocacy, by promoting their own sense of being, so that they can understand that even if they're living in a difficult situation where drug abuse, alcohol abuse is present, that they do have the power within themselves to focus on a positive future that will not include substance abuse. I think that if we begin to teach them a little bit about self-advocacy, build their self-esteem, then even if they do go home to difficult situations, they will feel empowered to make the decisions that are best for them as they move forward. Our other plan is to go to the high schools and promote what we are calling our ambassador program. Our students can sign up, become ambassadors of Project Race. They will be trained in career readiness, emotional intelligence, and substance abuse prevention. They will then be given what I call the ambassador kit, which is actually just a pad folio filled with information about what our program offers and filled with pamphlets and informational pamphlets against substance abuse. I think that if we engage our community and engage our young to go out there and spread the word, we can make this happen. We can start lowering these horrific rates and numbers. The other thing that we're doing is encouraging community events, such as a movie night at the Dreamcatcher, where students can come with their families. They will sit down, we will do a presentation on drug prevention, have our local police chief, members of the DEA come in to speak to them, to let them know that police are not to be feared. You know, because they've grown up in multi-generational drug use, they've also been taught to fear law enforcement. Law enforcement is not to be feared, it's to be accepted, it's to be joined with, it's to work with. That's one of our events. The other is that we must offer alternatives to the substance abuse. Can't tell them not to party and then not give them anything to do. So that's why we're going to focus on education, why we're going to focus on employment. In these community events, we're also encouraging them. If their family members want assistance, we're not going to turn anyone away. If a family member wants assistance with career readiness training, with writing a resume, with how to do a job search, we are offering that. We feel that if we address the entire family when they need it, that these supports will allow us to just be better off as a community and to really lower that crime rate that's associated with drug abuse. That's all I have to say on Project Race. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for joining us today. We really appreciate it. And thank you for all the work you're going to be doing.
Thank you.
All right, very well. Now we'll go on to matters from the city manager.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of the governing body. Before you, we have a discussion item on the New Mexico House Bill to the Cannabis Regulations Act. At this time, I am going to yield the floor to our planner, Mr. Mohammed Hussein, to discuss in detail on this. And also we have on the line Ms. Corey Strive from Randy Audio's firm as well to assist in regards to any questions in regards to this item.
Thank you so much, Honorable Mayor and the member of the council. So this bill we wanted to discuss with you before we take it to the action item, because we also have to take it back to the Planning and Zoning Commission one more time to discuss with them, because when we presented to the Planning and Zoning Commission twice, and they gave us some recommendations. We worked on some of those recommendations, and since the production started from September 1st, so we feel that we're lagging some behind in those terms of having a clear pathway for the production, manufacturing, retail business for the cannabis. We just wanted to make sure that this is by October, we have a clear vision for cannabis in the city of Espanola. Can you go to the next slide? So in this is a very brief presentation. You have the Cannabis Regulation Act draft is you should have that as well as a packet for this meeting. So we're going to discuss the chapter 128, which is adult entertainment, and then chapter 254, which is nuisance. We have a few minor updates on that to accommodate cannabis and some other minor issues that comes to agriculture and livestock. And the major issues, the major updates are in the chapter 350, which is planning and development, planning and land use. And we will have discussion and we will have some information on the production of the cannabis at the commercial level, as well as at the private or the individual level, the manufacturing of different cannabis products, sale and retail business, and consumption of the cannabis in the city of Espanola. And just to mention that nothing in this chapter will violate the Cannabis Regulation Act of the state of New Mexico, and we would not prohibit, limit, or otherwise restrict the personal use of the cannabis or personal production of the cannabis in the city of Espanola. Let me go to the next slide, please. All right, so we have categorized the production of the cannabis in 3 different levels, because when we initially took it to the Planning and Zoning Commission, they give the recommendation that because we are a small community, and in this small community, the outdoor growth could be an issue, because the smell could be a big issue for the community. That's why we want to have strict or some measures to control that nuisance, and all those measures should be taken to reduce and minimize the smell. So we came up with certain setback requirements. So there is a distance between the actual plants and plantation or the crop and the neighboring properties. So, and the micro production, actually, why we introduced this, because the micro businesses and the micro production, we are the small community and we want to give the opportunity to our small farmers and community members to take part in this economic activity. And if they want to be the part of this economic activity, they can do it through the small business and up to 200 plants, and which is permitted in R1, R2, B2, L1, H1 district, and subject to administrator approval. So they may not have to go through the Planning and Zoning Commission if they're going up to 200 plants. And the setback requirements are as 20 feet from the property lines if they are in R1, B2, and L1, or if they are in R2, it's 15 feet because of the size of the parcel is smaller. So we wanted to have them in certain ways. And for the setbacks for the outdoor are higher as per the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Commission. So we can mitigate that and effect and the smell of cannabis, which is 40 feet for this. But for every single production, they have to have a license from early, they have to have a site plan, which will be reviewed by the planning department. It will have a fire department review and the security analysis. The next slide. Next come the large producer, because the larger corporations come and then they have the larger production, especially indoor and the outdoor. So up to 1,000 plants, they can grow it in B2 L1 H1 district, and it will be authorized by the Planning and Zoning Commission. That's what we are recommending to it, so that we can consult with the Planning and Zoning Commission and as well as the community as well, so that we have the consensus on that. And we have a little bit higher setbacks for this. Even for the indoor, it is 30 feet from the property lines, and any cannabis grown outdoor must be located as fewer as 60 feet from the property boundaries, irrespective of any zone district. And other additional requirements are for every, as I mentioned, for any other group, the same additional requirements for the license and site plan and the review by the fire department and the security. Next slide. And this is the production level, the large producer. There's another group which has more than 1,000 plants, and it's just the difference of the setbacks, which is 40 feet instead of 30 feet for the indoor and 80 feet for the outdoor properties to encompass and mitigate the smell. Next slide. We should go to the. So manufacturing, testing, and research. There was a page that passed on to you what actually the class 1, class 2, and class 3 and class 4 it means. And class 1 actually is for the packaging and repackaging of the cannabis products, or labeling or relabeling, which don't have just a byproduct. They can just label it in smaller containers, or something that is only allowed in R1 and R2, B1, B2, and H1 zone. But as soon as the process gets complex, we're taking it away a little bit further from the community as it comes to the class 2, which is which includes the class 1 activities, packages, and repackaging but types of cannabis products. But it could have edible products as well, some tropical products using the infusion process. So for this class 2, there is an addition of infusion process.
Mr. Hussein, before we go on, could you do us a favor and describe what the distinction is between, or define what manufacturing is, what that process would look like, so that those of us who are perhaps not familiar with the manufacturer of this product would be, so that we get an idea for what that process looks
Sure.
like.
So for production of the plant, there is just a raw product. And from raw products, there are some byproducts. It could be edible. They can vape and smoke. It could be a liquid extraction. And they apply different methods they can have a tropical ointments. It could be a chewing gums. It could be any other products which are deduced from the raw products. It could be the flower of that hemp or from the leaves, which is not the actual raw material, but the product which is actually extracted from the plant, and then it is turned into different other liquid or solid products.
Thank you.
And the class 3 is, as I mentioned, is in
And
B1.
I apologize, before you go on, we also have another question from Councillor John Ritchie. Go ahead.
Sure.
Each one, what do you tell the zones on, another zone partner?
That's a light industrial zone.
Light industrial?
Yes. It's a heavy industrial. And that actually the size of this zoning district are determined by how the bigger the lot size is.
In our zone, I've never seen an L or, large industry or heavy, I haven't seen that. But where is those areas within our community?
If we go towards where the high school is, where the Rio Arriba County Assessor's Office is, on the right side of there is, this is an H1 district.
That's in each one,
Yes.
and then where's the light in this?
On the other side of it is the L1. If I can send it to you, the official zoning map, it is on our website as well. And it is differentiated between where the L1 and H1 is.
Very good. Thank you. Go ahead.
Can you go to the next slide, please? So when it comes to cannabis retail, we wanted to have this in commercial district or the historic district. So it's only allowed in B1, B2, B3, and the historic tourist commercial district. And a license is required for any retail business to operate in this city. Just wanted to mention that any individual can grow 6 plants for themselves, and they have to be at least 21 years old and 12 per household, but they cannot sell that. Any sale should be authorized any sale should be under authorization of the state of New Mexico's licensing provisions, which require a license to sell. And the retail business should be at least 300 feet from any church or daycare or school. And we want to introduce 200 feet of distance between any retail business in a community so that there is not just the density, and it should be divided equally to different communities. One thing that we also want to mention that we want to have a competition between different corporations, because the smaller communities, people can have their own business as well as the bigger corporations. If this distance is actually not allowed, it could possibly minimize the competition and big corporations can take over the business. We just wanted to give an opportunity to small businesses as well and micro business to grow this community as well. That's why it's been introduced.
Thank you, Mr. Hussein. We do have a question from Councilor Manny Martinez.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Hussein, on the 300 feet distance from a school or daycare center, does that include what you mentioned as far as what can be grown personal within a household? There is a lot of homes that are near schools and daycares. I didn't know if that would be affected by that as well, or is that a different situation there, sir?
Thank you so much, Councilor Martinez. I think this should not affect the personal, but I can definitely check on this and get back to, and I can and Corey Strive is our attorney. She may be able to comment on this as well.
Sure, Councilor Martinez. Thank you. The answer is no. So none of these provisions are going to impact anything to do with the personal use of cannabis. So anybody who has a residence that would be within the 300 feet of a school or daycare, the state, for better or worse, has done nothing to prohibit that. So you could still theoretically have an elementary school in your backyard and still produce. Just as long as you're only, as long as you are staying within those guidelines of the 6 feet for one person, or if you're a multi-person household, those 12 plants would be your cap. They have to be outside of the view of anybody. So if somebody was growing maybe outdoors, they'd have to make sure that it was in their fenced backyard, and it can't be a chain link fence, it's got to be obscured. But those are, regulations at a statewide level. They really don't have anything to do with what we're talking about. And unfortunately, for better or worse, we really can't do anything about it. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes, it does. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilor Martinez. Councilor Justin Salazar Torres.
I'll yield to the end of the presentation, sir.
Okay,
Thank
very
you.
well. Continue, Mr. Hussein.
Can we go to the next slide, please? Melissa, can you go to the next slide? So marijuana consumption areas, we the city of Espanola will treat this marijuana consumption as any other drug that as any adult person go to any premises and become under any influence of any drug. So they have to have a specific area that is allocated as per the state of New Mexico Cannabis Regulation Act to smoke that to consume the cannabis. But it does not limit anyone from to smoke in their own property. And again, since the retail business and the consumption are actually joined, so the consumption areas should be 300 feet from any daycare center or school. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, the consumption is only allowed in permitted premises, and hours of operations are from 7 a.m. to 2 a.m. for the consumption, but to operate the business operation, it is from 7 a.m. to 12 a.m. the next day. So the use, sale, and cultivation, manufacturing, production, storage, or distribution of marijuana or marijuana products is prohibited on the property that is occupied, owned, controlled, or operated by the city of Espanola. It should be unlawful to anyone to smoke or consume marijuana of any kind, either lawfully purchased in any public spaces or in any street, in any government building, whether it's federal, state, or any public space, except licensed cannabis consumption establishment, which are mostly the retail stores or any designated area for the cannabis.
If I may, if we have a retail outlet that is allowed to sell, is it automatically also then allowed to consume on the premise, or is that a separate issue?
I would say it would be separate, because if we see this as an application, there should be a designated area for the retail. If they have the designated area, they can smoke there, but I don't think if it would be considered as a public space.
Okay, and I guess perhaps this is either for you or Ms. Strife. The question would be, would that be two separate legal registrations and licenses, one for retail sale as well as consumption, or versus one only for consumption?
I believe retail and consumption is joined, but I will take a second opinion from Stripe.
Yes, sorry, thank you. So the answer is that the state was not especially clear, and we're hoping that this becomes more clarified as they produce the regulations for the retail and consumption sites. So far, they've given us production and manufacture, which is why we're able to go into a little bit more detail regarding those now in the ordinance. Being mindful, of course, moving forward, that whenever this does get put into place, we will need to have a forward-thinking eye towards amending specifically for those retail and consumption sites. That said, the way it is now written, it is that a retail space may be a standalone retail space, or it may be a retail space along with a consumption area. So it would be two distinct licenses. Anyone who is going to have a consumption area will have to have the license for the consumption area as well as a license for retail. And I believe that that will be in place regardless of whether they want to be technically a retailer, such as, think like the difference between a bar and a liquor store. You can buy packaged liquor. That would be your equivalent of like a cannabis retailer, versus your bar would be your cannabis consumption area. However, the way that the state has delineated those is that every bar has to have a permit to sell the alcohol. And so in the cannabis world, they've conflated them. They're the same thing. You must have a cannabis retail license in order to be able to have a cannabis consumption area. But you may have a cannabis retail license without necessarily going that extra step and becoming a cannabis consumption area. So any consumption area is going to have both licenses. Any retailer may have both licenses, but does not have to.
Okay, and just to clarify, that's sometimes a little backwards. In other words, in order to be able to consume, you must also be able to sell. Is that correct?
Correct. As far as it is written so far, that is what we have, yes.
Okay, and then I've seen a few municipal codes that restrict that consumption sale capability at other locations that also then sell alcohol, for example. Is that something that we would be able to constrict or restrict?
We do not have to. Actually, in the state regulations, you are not allowed under any circumstance to cross alcohol and cannabis. So a retail and or consumption area may not also serve alcohol in any respect. And sort of to tail end on that, if you're actually a prospective licensee for cannabis, you may not currently have an alcohol or liquor license as well. So they put some safeguards in place so that we don't have to consider that, but it's certainly something that we should have in the back of our minds.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Peggy Sue Martinez.
Thank you, Mayor. My question deals with whether or not the city has considered that there'll be medical use sold and recreational use sold, and what that entails for the GRT part of my community. And have we made sure that even though these businesses will sell both, part of their business will be taxable to the community? So I'm thinking under that, they'll require a business license and a GRT number and stuff. Correct?
I think that's correct.
And what we've also recognized is that other municipalities, and I think this is the direction that we should go toward, is that every business that does business requires a business license for the city. But in addition to that, if there is a cannabis sale, whether it's medical or recreational, that would require a separate cannabis licensure. And at which point we would require a different fee perhaps for that licensure.
I would definitely like to see something like that set up. And my main concern is, of course, the cost to this community as far as what happens with new business. And we all know that that does cost our police department, our fire department, public safety, and other areas of our community. And that's why the tax part of this situation is so important to me, that we make sure that we're taxing the recreational part of this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have a question from Councilor Justin Salazar Torres. Go ahead.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor. So just to follow up on that, on the tax section on this Cannabis Regulation Act, is there any portion that permits municipalities to tax this this act or the cannabis itself to allocate towards public safety? Because they are, again, it does bring up public safety into the question. So does it permit municipalities to do so?
I'll answer that one for you. So the way that the Cannabis Regulation Act was written, they actually created a tiered structure. I believe that what we're looking at right now is that any recreational cannabis sale is at the rate of 12% for taxing. What that means for the municipality, for better or worse, and in my opinion, worse, and you guys may agree, the municipality gets 1/3 of that. So at this point in time, it would be a 4% kickback to the municipality where that was sold. I don't believe that I've seen any specifications as far as how the municipality may use that. That 4% of that sale would go to you guys, however you'd like to dictate what to do with that tax. And to address Ms. Martinez's statement about the taxes as well. One thing I understand is that tax is a flat tax that was set by the state and is not negotiable for a local municipality. We do not really have any freedom to add on taxes to that. One thing that we can do, and that I think is well worthwhile, is to make sure that those cannabis permits that Mr. Hussein has proposed in this structure, is that we can certainly put an additional cost on that, particularly because these are going to be ultimately a review every single time an application comes in to planning and zoning. It's going to be a fairly expensive review process, and I understand that that is not going to be without cost, particularly the folks in planning. It's going to take an awful lot of time and resources to vet these applications. And so I think that those permitting fees are certainly well worth considering and putting into place, understanding that we're going to be rather limited in terms of what we can do in terms of taxation.
Follow up, Mayor.
And just to double check before we go for that follow-up, what I'd like to recommend is what we just discussed a second ago, which is that when it comes to the licensure, that we place the applicable fee at that point, whether it is a development fee or a police fee or whatever it is, security fee or whatever it is at that point, whether it's on a one-time basis or on a yearly basis, separate from and in addition to the actual tax structure. I think that's where we'd have to recognize that the actual costs are perhaps greater than the actual fees that we'll be getting from GRTs. So for a follow-up, Councilor Justin Salazar Torres, go ahead.
So for a follow-up, my question was going to be to the attorneys is restrictions regarding that permit fee. Can it be biannual, annual? Is there any restrictions that limits us to when we can charge that fee or renewal fee, should I say?
At this time, nothing that I've seen. That's going to be one of those things I'm sort of hoping that we get a little bit more guidance on. As to be completely transparent, the way that this is going for us right now is the state regulation and licensing department created a cannabis control division. That cannabis control division is essentially building the car as they drive it. So the regulations that we're getting are very likely the first pass at getting something in place in the deadline that they had set before them, because the governor was very, very ambitious with this project, which is admirable, but of course leaves us in the local area trying to figure out how we make heads or tails of that. And so the structure that I have seen and that I think is going to be something that's most viable is going to be an annual licensure or an annual reapplication, wherein someone who has a permit to do cannabis retail reapplies for that same permit. We check all the boxes, make sure that they're still in compliance, make sure that they've had no complaints or anything like that along the way, and then just recharge those applicable fees. Perhaps the discount if it's just going to be somebody who's been in good standing and has caused no harm, so on and so forth. But I think that would be the appropriate way to do it thus far, is just once every year, the same as we would any other business license.
We decided to walk before we can.
Thank you very much. Councilor John Ramon Vihil.
Thank you. This question is actually for the planning attorney. Being that we're a statutory city and such, with home rule municipalities, I know they can impose more excise taxes on the constituency as opposed to statutory. If we were to go in that route, the home rule municipality, could we tie an excise tax to specifically be earmarked for public safety and increase that 1/3? I heard you. I'm kind of hearing a little bit of audio situation, so I just wanted to ask briefly that hypothetical question.
Sure, and I think that's a completely fair question. I think that I would be hesitant to go down that road. And my real reason for saying that is because the state has been very, very explicit in terms of what they do and don't want local jurisdictions to do. And impacting that tax structure was one of the things that they did include. Unfortunately, in my opinion, their local jurisdiction section is all of 1 page long. So it didn't give us a whole lot of guidance of what to do, but it did give us a good page what not to do.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much. So I think at this point, if we would hear perhaps finally from Mr. Hussein, what we'll do after that is I think we're bouncing this back to planning and land use. I know that they've attempted to hear this for the last 2 months and have been unsuccessful at doing so, which is why we brought it here. So what we'd like to do is bounce it back for some final recommendations from firm ones, so that when we hear it again, we can perhaps create a final resolution to our ordinances in order to make it work well. So with any final comments, what is it that you'd like us to know or do in the interim?
Yeah, I really appreciate your comments, and since we just want to have this a very inclusive process and try to design the way where it fits to our community, because every community is unique and their land use district and their land use regulations are different. So we wanted to make sure that we are serving the community and making sure that we're mitigating any nuisance or anything that will create any disturbance in the community. So just want to make sure that we're following the Cannabis Regulation Act designed by the state, and we are making our Cannabis Regulation Act according to our state. But we will definitely take any recommendation, but any member of the council or honorable mayor may have for us in terms of anything that you wanted to see for the final draft before we present it to you. If not now, if you wanted to research and just brainstorm more, you can always send an email and give your valuable comments, and we'll be happy to discuss those. But I just wanted to thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hussein. We truly appreciate it. Thank you for bringing that before us.
Mayor, real quick, I'd like to thank also Corey Strive for putting the input in regards to this as well.
Corey, thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, very well. So now we'll move on to business with visitors, and seeing none, we'll go straight to our public hearing, which is ordinance number 2021-06, an ordinance of the city of Espanola amending section 23-5, 23-6, and 23-12, and adding section 23-13 of the Espanola City Code regarding qualifications of municipal judge, appointment of temporary municipal judge, vacancy in the office of the municipal judge, repealing all resolutions, ordinances, and actions in conflict herewith. So we will begin this public hearing. And do we have any, perhaps an opening comment from our city attorney to describe what it is that we're doing? We'll open the hearing, and then we will listen to both anyone who is in favor or anyone who is against, and then we will have a discussion upon closing that hearing. Mr. Nahum.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor, members of the governing body. Before you tonight in this public hearing is an ordinance that amends the requirements, including the salary for the position, the elected position of municipal judge in the city of Espanola. The current ordinance sets the salary of the municipal judge to be equal to the salary paid to state magistrate judges, which salary currently is just over $98,000 a year. I will tell you that I have looked at multiple other municipalities in the state, and nowhere else is that the case. Most other municipalities pay their municipal judges anywhere from between $40,000 to $50,000, and the most I've seen, aside from the city of Espanola, is the city of Los Alamos, or the county of Los Alamos, which pays their municipal judge $75,000. So that is on the amendment for tonight, is whether the city should amend its municipal judge ordinance to show a different salary than the one that's currently set. The second amendment that's before you tonight are the qualifications that are required for a municipal judge. Now, the current ordinance sets those qualifications. You must be a citizen of the United States. You shall be a legal resident of the state and a qualified elector therein, and you shall be a resident of the city. Before you tonight in that ordinance are some options for you. If you would like to increase the requirements for qualification to municipal judge, there are some ideas there. I will tell you that in many of the other cities around the state, now I'm not talking home rule, I'm talking statutory cities. The only other qualification that they have added that I have seen that differs from the city of Espanola is the obtaining of a high school degree or equivalent. And that is a qualification that is set in the state for all magistrate judges. Magistrate judges are required to have a bar degree and have a JD and be a lawyer if the city has over 200,000 persons in it. But for the vast majority of municipalities that I looked at, it was just an additional requirement of having a high school diploma. And then lastly, The amendment that's before you changes the process or presents options to change the process for selecting a temporary municipal judge. And I remember when Judge Salazar resigned, there was a bit of an issue with the city because there were no temporary judges available. And so what we've done here is presented the city with a few options about how those temporary alternate judges are selected, whether it's at the time of appointment of the judge, or the current city code says that the municipal judge appoints at the time of the event, or whether the mayor should be the one with the advice and consent of the council to appoint those alternate temporary judges. So there are some options there for you as well as to how those temporary judges are selected. Now, the successor judge, I just want to mention this. There's a temporary judge, and then there's a successor judge. The successor judge is what you all approved Judge Martinez for. The successor judge runs when there's or fills the position when there's a vacancy in the office. That's different than a temporary absence, which is what the alternate. So the alternates are there for when the judge gets sick or sees that he's going to be absent for a while. That temporary judge would then fill his position. But if he is removed or he resigns or something else horrible happens to him, a interim or successor judge is appointed through the next municipal election. That is controlled by state statute. That's always up to the council, which was the process that we followed with Judge Martinez's appointment this year. So with that, I'll leave the public hearing to you, and that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nahum. So that having been sort of the descriptor for the public hearing, we will now open that up so that we can get any conversation, discussion, questions, and or comments from the public. The time is now 7:06, and we hereby open the public hearing. So we will now at this time ask for anyone who wishes to speak either in favor or against any of the changes that are proposed to come before us and speak. We have before us first the Honorable Mr. Martinez. Please go right ahead, sir. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, council members. At this point, I have more questions than preferences with regards to support or not supporting the ordinance. I would advise that with regards to 23.5 paragraph E, where it reads, shall have 60 college credits, credit hours, shall is mandatory. So if this ordinance is passed as it is, only someone with 60 college credit hours would be able to serve. I would recommend or suggest that you insert shall have a minimum of 60 college credit hours. With regards to the mayor with city council approves selects municipal judges, that is the third from the last recommendation on page 3. I tried as best I could to understand exactly how that proposal would be incorporated into the ordinance. But I actually came out with 2 possibilities with regards to that ordinance.
And forgive me, just to make sure that we're on the same page, that is the paragraph that begins, the mayor with city council approval selects municipal judges.
Correct. And
Okay,
then
go ahead.
Continues, the mayor with the advice and consent of city council. That's the one I'm referring to.
Yes, sir.
And I do see that there is a proposal there for designating individuals who may be selected to serve as interim or temporary judges. The question that I have with regards to that proposal is, are the designations, are they appointed and then served for a period of time, for a term period? In which case, it would make sense that the municipal judge, if he's incapacitated, if he's disqualified, or if he just wants to take some time off, at that point, does he have the option of selecting one of the designees? So if the designees are appointed for a period of time, say a year, then that will work. But if there is no time limit with regards to the appointment of the designees, I don't see how this would work. Here's why. I'm the municipal judge today. I get sick. I need, or you folks will need to appoint my replacement today. But if the interim potential appointments, if you folks have to go through the process in order to name the designee, if that takes 2 or 3 weeks or longer, on day one is when I needed my replacement. So if you're going to go with that provision, folks, I would recommend, like I say, that you appoint the designees and you set a timeline for their appointment, whether it's a year or 6 months, whatever you folks decide you want to do with it. But I would go that route if you choose to select this one. The only other point that I'd like to make with regards to this provision here is you should add at least some language in the provision to the effect that you folks will then have the authority after appointment to also remove designees. Because say you appoint 3 designees 6 months down the road, one of those designees, for some reason or another, is disqualified from serving as a judge, yet the judge that is going to select that designee happens to select that one designee who has been disqualified, that defeats the purpose of this provision. So again, just those 2 things that I would recommend is 1, add a timeline, and 2, add a provision in it with regards to you folks' ability to monitor and if necessary, remove or add designees during that 12-month period or whatever time frame you folks choose. And I guess I do have to address one point that may or may not affect me depending on what you folks are contemplating tonight. The salary of the municipal judge. If this ordinance or if this provisions are adopted tonight, I need to know that this provision will not apply to me so long as I am the municipal judge. When you folks appointed me, you appointed me to serve and in fact asked me to serve until the next election. I agreed to do so. In addition, when I was hired at the former municipal judge's salary. So I would expect that you folks tonight would honor that obligation in the same manner as I am doing with regards to the way I am running the municipal court. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Your Honor. And I know that this is a public hearing where we listen to folks who are for and against before we actually begin the conversation. But for the sake of clarity, if I may, as we mentioned when we first brought you on board and you agreed, this was going to be until that election cycle. So all agreements would be made and honored up until that point. This would not take effect until the next judicial cycle of elections.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Do we have any other comments for this ordinance, either in favor or against? Thank you very much. And if you would, please state your name for the record.
Claire Bergeron,
And if you could please spell your last name.
Baillargeon.
Very good. I won't even try to pronounce it. Bergeron.
I understand. I'm glad that you brought that up about your salary changing. I agree with them. You should be allowed to keep it. What I'd like to know is, how do you justify $20,000+ more than any other municipality?
It's a good point.
Can I get an answer?
Unfortunately, we're not here to respond. This is for public
okay.
commentary in
Well-
order to make your comments known so that when we do discuss, we bring all of the comments that are made into reflection.
Okay. So I'm definitely in favor of taking it down a few notches. Definitely. I think that's a little high.
Thank you. Anyone else, either in favor or against? And if you wouldn't mind, please stating your name for the record, and we'll continue from that point.
My name is Yvonne Quintana. I'm an attorney practicing law in the city of Espanola, and I've been practicing law here for a period of 26 years. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Mr. City Manager. In reviewing the ordinance that you are proposing to adopt, I'm going to start off where the Honorable Judge Martinez left off with regard to his salary. Not only should his salary remain the same, it would be a violation of his constitutional rights to enact a law that is retroactive. That would be an ex post facto law. I believe that any change that you make cannot be effective until the next election cycle. It's similar to if you run an ordinance by increasing the salary of the mayor or increasing the salary of the city council members, it cannot take effect during that particular term. It has to be effective the next term. So I'm glad to hear that there's no intent to reduce his salary, because I think that it would be a violation of law and of the Constitution. So I'm not in favor of that provision, although the ordinance isn't specific as to the effective date. I think that that is a change that should be made, is the effective date of this ordinance. I am here to speak against portions of this ordinance. The other woman who spoke with regard to the salary. I offer no opinion with regard to what the salary should be. We elect each and every one of you as members of the council to legislate, to control the purse. So what you decide to pay your municipal judge is completely up to you and should be based on budget, and you should use guidance from other municipalities. So I don't really have a comment or a position with regard to that. I think that that is completely appropriate for this city council to consider and to reconsider from time to time. The provision that I am opposed to is the provision with regard to the qualifications for a municipal court judge. We live in a state that has statutes that have established different criteria for judges at different levels. If this city were to adopt this ordinance with the language that somebody shall have that level of education, while it might be favorable and you can clearly compensate somebody for that added experience in your salary provision of your ordinance, I think that it is short-sighted to limit the individuals who can run for judge. There are many people that have experience, life experience, without having the college experience that would be of benefit to this community to serve in this capacity. For example, the city of Santa Fe has a provision in its ordinance and framework that provides for their municipal judge to be a lawyer. Well, that's great that we have the Honorable Judge Martinez serving right now, and he has that education, and that's a benefit to the city. We have to look at the number of lawyers that we have that actually live within the city limits. I think that there's Judge Martinez, there is Mr. Jose Sandoval, there is, who else lives in the city limits? I don't think that there's another lawyer who actually lives in the city limits. I don't. I live a stone throw away, but I am presently not living in the city limits. All of the other lawyers that I'm familiar with live in the areas surrounding the city or within the county or even within Santa Fe County, and they drive into Espanola. We serve a broad community in Espanola, and it's not just the city. But I think that you really limit the individuals who can serve in this capacity. I also think that the provision which has you appointing the pro tem judge is a risky provision. It is risky because it has the city, the legislative and executive branch of the city, dabbling into the areas governed by the municipal judge. And while by ordinance, you can legislate certain things, the city, through its council and its mayor, if you can remove and appoint and re-remove and reappoint, it really enables the legislative branch to have control of the judicial branch in a way that violates the separation of powers. And I think that that's risky. Most municipalities have a provision for your pro tem judges to be appointed by your sitting judge who is elected to manage and maintain the judicial branch of the city. Only when a judge is not sitting, for example, in this instance where Judge Salazar resigned and you have Judge Martinez appointed by the council, to then have the council appointing pro tem judges really has the council acting in a way that may interfere with the judiciary. And I think that may lead to some legal problems for this municipality. And I question whether or not that provision would be upheld. And it would definitely depend on how it's exercised. Obviously each case is analyzed on a case-by-case basis factually. So there may be some instances where it might not be a violation, but there's clearly other instances where abuses of power would make that a violation. So I think that that is something that you are removing power from the judiciary and giving that power to the legislative branch, and that violates your separation of powers. With regard to the requirement, going back to the requirement of education of 60 hours. We live in a community where we have many individuals who could serve this community. And I think that this particular provision has potential to eliminate a lot of people from qualifying to serve as your pro tem judge, as well as your judge and limits the pool of individuals who will then be available to serve this community. That is why the statutory framework in smaller communities, which don't meet the population criteria to have a judge, a magistrate judge, for example, be a lawyer, they don't have that requirement. So that it's open to the constituents to elect the person that they want to serve. You're really limiting the constituents' ability to select who they want to serve. In fact, I think that this particular provision may be disenfranchising individuals who want to serve in this capacity. And that may be a legal dilemma for this particular legislation. And I am not in favor of it from that perspective. I think that there is a need to revamp the ordinance, but I don't think that you have addressed all of the issues that will bring legal issues and scrutiny over the ordinance at this time. And I would recommend that it be rejected as written. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Quintana. Do we have anyone else who would like to speak either in favor or against, or with any recommendation or with any comments? We'll give everyone just another minute to decide or choose which direction they'd like to speak. All right, very well. Seeing none, we'll now record the time as 7:26 p.m. and this public hearing is now closed. You'll have to forgive me, but I require a 5-minute break. With any objections, I must retire for just 5 minutes. Thank you. 5 minutes.
Was it that time? I just didn't expect it to deal with it anymore. It's tired of, brushing it out.
How are you? I'm glad to see you.
Busy, yeah. Let's have lunch. Yeah, I mentioned it. You're busy, dude, good. I know, that's what it is.
Busy here.
Yes, it's a couple weeks later. You got a date?
let me know, and then, for me, it's tough, but, Picolinos,
Yes.
it's close to me, and I can eat there. Hey, how are you, brother? Good.
So Eddie is.
Wednesdays are probably the
Ladies and
best.
gentlemen,
Yeah.
we ready?
I was gonna do it today, but it rained.
Yeah, this should. I'm good. How's it going, bro? Good to see you, man. Thank you so much for that t-shirt, man. That's awesome.
Let's get going.
I know. 26, it is now 30. We've got one more minute, ladies and gentlemen. Whew.
Anyway.
It's due Thursday. So. Now, 7:34, we're hereby calling this meeting back to order. So we have just closed our public hearing. And just a couple of comments before we go into any discussion or anything like that is, so we've heard from our honorable attorney who recommends that we have some minimum requirement for college credits. I think that's crucial. I think there are other discussions that have not been truly maybe discussed, but one of them that has been, at least in my opinion, but we'll perhaps have further discussion for this, at least thoroughly gone through, is this question of separation of powers. In my opinion, separation of powers is not an issue on the table whatsoever, mostly because this is not a separation of powers at the federal level that requires a distinction between the legislative, executive, and judicial branches. The separation of powers was created in order so that one branch not be stronger than the other. In this case, however, as municipal courts go, there aren't really any hearings made that distinguish or determine whether or not executive or legislative powers are actually made. So that's not truly an issue. However, there are some other remnants of this discussion that I believe need to be perhaps discussed further. So Councillor Justin Salazar Torres.
Honorable Mayor, thank you. I've heard all the recommendations. I've heard the discussions. I would like to recommend at the leisure with comment after, I would like to make a motion to send this back to Public Safety Committee.
Second.
So if the seconder will give me just a minute. So I guess we can chew on this just a little bit more. I do want to state that this did go before my committee to move forward to full council. I guess we'll take it back again with this motion, take another look at it, and go forth from there. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. So we have a motion from Councillor Justin Salazar Torres to take this to Public Safety Committee, as well as a second from Councillor John Ritchie. Do we have discussion? Councillor Peggy Sue Martinez.
Under discussion, Mayor, is this a motion to table and return back to full council or?
Motion to table to committee.
It's a motion to move to committee, and that committee meets?
The second.
And that committee date is?
Give me 1 second, sir. I'm looking. I don't want to say the wrong date on the record. The 6th.
That'll be October the 6th. Yes.
And then returning back.
Well, at that point, it'll be up to Public Safety to determine what they wish to do with it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other comments? Councillor John Ramon Vigil.
Thank you. Mr. Nahum, can you go a little bit further and discuss, you did some research for some statutory cities and they're all in compliance with the state statute where it's the minimum requirements of a magistrate judge. Are we walking into any situations that possibly could arise from violation of statutory city versus a home rule municipality? One of the examples mentioned was Santa Fe, and Santa Fe is a home rule municipality. And I've been a longtime advocate here in Espanola for us to move towards being a home rule municipality. It's fallen on deaf ears. And I think that we should go in that route. But as a statutory town, can we implement qualifications and such if other statutory towns aren't doing that?
Mr. Mayor, Honorable Councillor John Ramon Vigil. The New Mexico state statutes call them statutory cities of New Mexico, the authority to provide for qualifications of municipal judge, and that's provided for in section 35-14-3. And I quote, "The qualifications of municipal judges, bond required, and salary received shall be provided by ordinance of the municipality." So it absolutely is within the authority of a statutory municipality to set the qualifications of municipal judges. I know that Santa Fe does require their municipal judge to have a law degree and to have passed the bar exam, and they are a home rule municipality. But I think that a statutory city would also have the same authority. There doesn't seem to be any limit placed on that authority by the state statutes. And so if the city wanted to require that much education, then it could do so if it so wished. Okay.
Very well. Thank you. Any other council comments or questions? All right, very well. Hearing none, we have a motion from Councilor Justin Salazar Torres to move this back to Public Safety Committee with a second from Councilor John Ritchie. Can we take a roll call vote, please, just in case? Thank you.
Counselor Peggy Sue Martinez,
I'll pass, come back to me.
Counselor John L. Ritchie,
In favor.
Counselor Justin Salazar Torres,
In favor.
Counselor John Ramon Vihil,
Against the motion.
Counselor Manuel J. Martinez,
In favor?
Counselor Denise D. Benavides,
In favor.
Counselor Dorothy D.D. Valdez,
In favor.
Mayor Pro Tem Dennis Tim Salazar,
For the motion.
Counselor Peggy Sue Martinez.
In favor.
Motion carries.
All right, very well. Next on our agenda, we have Roman numeral 12, items proposed for council consideration, discussion items, action items. We have before us letter E, resolution 2021-41, resolution authorizing the city of Espanola to submit an application to the Department of Finance and Administration, local government division to participate in the juvenile adjudication program. Ms. Diane Hawkes.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of the governing body. I'm here this evening respectfully requesting approval of Resolution 2021-41. And this resolution is merely authorizing our Espanola Municipal Court to apply for juvenile adjudication program funding from DFA.
Motion to approve, sir.
Second.
I think Mayor stepped out, so motion's been made by Counselor Justin Salazar Torres, seconded by Counselor Peggy Sue Martinez. Discussion, any further discussion?
Under discussion.
Go ahead, Counselor Peggy Sue Martinez.
I just want to say that I think this is something that we need to continue with. Some funding that we've gone after year, and I'm hopeful that we'll continue to get this funding for our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other further comment or discussion? None. Clerk, would you be able to call roll, please?
Counselor Peggy Sue Martinez.
In favor.
Counselor John L. Ritchie,
In favor.
Counselor Justin Salazar Torres,
In favor.
Counselor John Ramon Vihil,
For the motion.
Counselor Manuel J. Martinez,
In favor?
Counselor Denise D. Benavides,
In favor.
Counselor Dorothy D.D. Valdez,
For the motion.
Mayor Pro Tem Dennis Tim Salazar.
For the motion.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much, Mayor Pro Tem, for that. We'll go on to letter F, resolution 2021-42, resolution adopting the 2023 through 2027 infrastructure capital improvement plan for the Beatrice Martinez Senior Center. Ms. Hawkes.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor, members of the governing body. I'm here again requesting approval of Resolution 2021-42. This resolution will adopt the 2023 to 2027 ICIP for the Beatrice Martinez Senior Center. This ICIP was presented to the Community Services Committee and was pushed forward to full council for approval.
Motion to approve. For
Second.
discussion.
We have a motion of approval from Councilor Peggy Sue Martinez with a second from Councilor John Ritchie. Councilor Peggy Sue Martinez, go ahead.
Thank you. The only concern that I had with this ICIP was the talk of covering up that swimming pool up there at the stroke center as a part of the plan. And my concern dealt with mostly the fact that we have a lot of unknowns with the swimming pool at the Lucero Center. And it would be a catastrophe if this community lost a pool on this side of town. So that's my only concern. Other than that, I'm totally in favor of the whole thing. I don't feel like that has to be something that we absolutely have to do. And by voting on this, I'm hopeful that I'm not voting in favor of destroying that swimming pool. Is that true, Mr. Noel? I'm just concerned that it does mention the filling in of that swimming pool and up there, and I'm not really in favor of that. I'm not sure if it's on this paperwork that we got on this one, but it was in our committee paperwork.
Yes, Councilor, it is under number 2.
Yeah,
So under the senior center renovations for $1 million, it is a part of that renovation.
so I'm gonna remake my motion. I'm gonna make the motion to approve holding up.
Actually, why don't we do this? If you'd like to make an amendment, let's
Yeah.
make an amendment to remove that particular
Okay.
item.
All right, so I'll do that. We'll go ahead and
go forward with the whole thing except for the filling in of the swimming pool until we have an idea of what's happening with the pool here at Lucero Center.
So for clarification, we have a motion, an amendment to remove the fill-in of the pool under number 2 for the senior center renovations. Do we have a motion for that? Second for that?
Second.
We have a second from Counselor Didi Valdez. And for discussion on that amendment, Counselor Manny Martinez.
Thank you, Mayor. I was just a question for City Manager on that fill in on the pool there at the senior center. Do we have a cost estimate of what it would take to bring that pool back to life, sir?
Honorable Mayor, members of the governing body, Counselor Manny Martinez, that's a good question. So we have not got any cost estimates in regards to fixing that pool, but I know that the cost of bringing that pool back to operational services would way be beyond what it would cost to bring the Lucero Center indoor pool to operational services. I know that the mechanical room has been gutted over the past several years to maintain the other 2 pools, Lucero Center indoor pool and the Penny Garcia Aquatic Center. Also, from my understanding is that that pool developed a pretty drastic leak that would not retain any water for a significant time. And so that's why that pool was brought out of service. Another thing too is to even consider bringing that pool back up to speed. As all of you know, we had a struggle to bring in lifeguards just for 2 pools, much less 3. Does that answer your question, sir?
Yes, it does. Thank you so much. And with your answer as far as the leakage in that pool, my other question was going to be, what was the original reason it was taken out of service? So
City
thank
Manager.
you.
I'll remove the amendment. Thank you.
All right, so we have a removal of the amendment, and we will go from there. So, any other counselor comments or discussion from the original motion, which is to accept the resolution adopting the ICIP? All right, well, hearing none, after the amendment has been removed, we'll now go straight for the approval of Resolution 2023-27 Infrastructure Improvement Plan for the Beatrice Martinez Senior Center. That was originally motioned by Counselor Peggy Sue Martinez with a second from Counselor John Ritchie. Although, can we take a roll call vote, please?
We need a new motion, sir.
Why do we need a new motion? So she retracted her motion.
No, I retracted
The amendment. No, she retracted the amendment, not the original motion.
Ready?
All right, very well. So we can take a roll call vote on that. Thank you.
Counselor Peggy Sue Martinez.
In favor.
Counselor John Al Ritchie.
In favor.
Counselor Justin Salazar Torres.
In favor.
Counselor John Ramon Vihil.
For the motion.
Counselor Manuel J. Martinez.
In favor.
Counselor Denise D. Benavides. In favor. Counselor Dorothy Didi Valdez.
For the motion.
Mayor Pro Tem Dennis Tim Salazar.
For the motion.
Motion carries.
All right, very well. We'll go on now to Resolution 2021-43, a resolution approving a budget adjustment request, increasing revenues and expenditures for funding from the New Mexico Department of Transportation Fund in the amount of $645,000.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor, members of the governing body. I'm here respectfully requesting approval of Budget Adjustment Resolution 2021-43. This will give us the budget authority we need to begin spending this capital outlay award. This capital outlay award is for the Silky Way project that we have underway.
Motion
to approve.
We have a motion of approval from Counselor I'm sorry, where did the world that come from? Manny Martinez with a second from Counselor Peggy Sue Martinez. All right, very well. Do we have any discussion on this?
Under discussion, Mayor.
Counselor Johnny, apparently. Go ahead. Counselor Peggy Sue.
This deals with the Silky Way project, the whole thing that's going on over there behind the Walmart and the train station.
Not behind Walmart.
Sorry, not behind McDonald's.
Yes.
Sorry. Okay, thank you so much.
All right, very well. Any other council comment or discussion? No, very well. We will go on to a Roll call vote, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Dennis Tim Salazar,
For the motion.
Counselor Dorothy Didi Valdez,
In favor.
Counselor Denise D. Benavides,
In favor.
Counselor Manuel J. Martinez,
In favor?
Counselor John Ramon Vihil,
For the motion.
Counselor Justin Salazar Torres,
In favor.
Counselor John L. Ritchie,
In favor.
Counselor Peggy Sue Martinez.
In favor.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much. Now, before we go on, Counselor Manny Martinez is your middle name, John.
Close enough. My middle name is Juan.
It is. There was something there. I knew it. Thank you very much, Counselor. Okay, we will go on to Resolution 2021-44, a resolution approving a budget adjustment request increasing revenues and expenditures for capital outlay funds. Ms. Hawkins.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor, members of the governing body. One more time, I'm respectfully requesting approval of Resolution 2021-44. This will allow me to establish budget authority for 3 capital outlay awards that we just received. One is for $80,000 to purchase heavy equipment for North Central Solid Waste Authority. Another one is for $86,141 to make improvements at Valdez Park. And the third one is for an additional $100,000 to make improvements at Valdez Park as well.
Motion to approve.
Second.
A motion of approval from Counselor Peggy Sue Martinez and a second from Counselor Dennis Tim. Any other council comments or questions? All right, well, seeing none, we'll go to a roll call vote.
Counselor Peggy Sue Martinez.
In favor.
Counselor John L. Ritchie.
In favor.
Counselor Justin Salazar Torres.
In favor.
Counselor John Ramon Vihil.
For the motion.
Counselor Manuel J. Martinez.
In favor?
Counselor Denise D. Benavides.
In favor.
Counselor Dorothy Didi Valdez.
For the motion.
Mayor Pro Tem Dennis Tim Salazar.
For the motion.
Motion carries. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Now we'll go on to approval of co-sponsorship of 2021 Lowrider Day event. Mr. Jeremy Maestas.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor, members of the governing body. Before you, you have a request for the Espanola Lowrider Day. That is going to be scheduled for Saturday, October 16th, 2021, starting at 7 in the morning and ending at 10 p.m. Unlike previous years, this year's event will only be a one-day event. And this did go before the Community Services Committee and got approved to come to full council.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion for approval from Counselor Peggy Sue Martinez with a second from Counselor John Ritchie. Counselor John Ramon Vihil.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Maestas, I know that the county and the schools have implemented policies in regards to COVID and such for facilities. Have we done that?
Mr. Mayor, Counselor John Ramon Vihil, thank you. That's a good question. We have not instilled any specific restrictions as of yet. However, the individuals who have made the request have been informed that if restrictions throughout the state change, their events may modify to comply with those restrictions.
But follow up.
Of course. Counselor.
So in regards to like the convento and such and like facilities there, capacity and such, we haven't changed our policies. I would hope that we do. I think that we're going to have to do that in this COVID-19 era going forward. And for anyone who wants to use the senior center, parks, pools and such, we need to have some sort of COVID-19 protocol going ahead.
Mr. Mayor, members of the governing body, Counselor John Ramon Vihil. So that is a good point, and we definitely will look into that. I know that right now we are following the mask guidelines in regards to the senior center. They are required to wear masks. And any areas that are of high public use, they are required to wear masks, but we will definitely keep that in mind, sir.
All right, very well. Thank you very much. Can we take a roll call vote, please, of the co-sponsorship? Even though it's not necessary, we might as well go ahead.
It's not necessary, but I'd be happy to. Counselor Peggy Sue Martinez.
In favor.
Counselor John L. Ritchie.
In favor.
Counselor Justin Salazar Torres.
Aye, I mean, in favor.
Counselor John Ramon Vihil.
In favor.
Counselor Manuel J. Martinez.
In favor?
Counselor Denise D. Benavides.
In favor.
Counselor Dorothy Didi Valdez.
For the motion.
Mayor Pro Tem Dennis Tim Salazar.
For the motion.
Motion carries.
All right, thank you very much. And now we will go on to approval of co-sponsorship of 2021 Espanola Valley Arts Festival. Again, Mr. Maestas.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor, members of the governing body. Again, we have a request from the Espanola Valley Arts Festival requesting co-sponsorship from the city of Espanola. Again, they will have a modified event this year due to the COVID situation. They are requesting the use of the facilities on October 30th, 2021, from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. And this will basically be for a reception to be held at the Mission for the winner of the poster contest. There will not be any arts and crafts vendors or anything that we're used to typically seeing because of the COVID. It'll just be a reception.
Motion to approve. Second. All right, wonderful. That was like pulling teeth. Mayor Pro Tem, thank you very much for the motion and a second from Councilor Justin Salazar Torres.
See
Do we
what
have it?
happens when I don't go?
Apparently, do we have any other council comments or questions? Before Ms. Verna decides to
Under
give up and
comments,
quit.
just the same concern that Counselor Vigil has concerning COVID and how many people will be there, mandating that whoever's in the area maintains a mask and those types of things in city buildings. And that's it. Thank you, Mr. Maestros, for all of your efforts in these two issues and attending both meetings and for staying here till 8 o'clock tonight. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Councilor Manny Martinez.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I just wanted to assure you that we will be following COVID guidelines as far as much as we can, social distancing and of course wearing masks as we have this reception. I just wanted to let you know that as the Espanola Valley Arts Festival board, we didn't want to see 2 years pass without at least a official poster for the Arts Festival. We know that there are people out there that do collect them from year to year, and it was bad enough that we had to cancel last year's. Unfortunately, the board did also decide that due to COVID and the variant, that we would choose not to have the festival itself as normal as far as vendors, art vendors, and of course, entertainment on the plaza. God willing, next year will be a different story and we'll be able to continue this event as normal at the end of September of 2022, sir. Thank you.
Johnny, this council thanks you.
And a quick just invite, all of you are invited to come in and view the official poster and visit the artist of the poster winner that evening. Thank you. Or that afternoon. Sorry. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So all of those in favor of approval of co-sponsorship signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Very well. Co-sponsorship happens. Thank you very much. It is now 7:57. We have reached the end of our agenda. It is now time for adjournment. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We appreciate it. Have a good night.
Thank you. Have a good evening.